What up everyone, it's Allday. Today I'm going to talk to you about tattoo aftercare. For those of you who've been tattooed before by multiple different artists, you may know that every tattooer is going to tell you something different as far as how to take care of your tattoo. So I'm going to be talking about the different methods of taking care of your tattoo. But let me ask you this, are these glasses distracting with this light? It's my new ring light. Anyway. Okay, so before your tattooer sends you on your way, they're probably going to go over aftercare with you. The most common way of taking care of your tattoo is step 1. After you go home, you're going to take off your bandage. You want to wash your tattoo with just your hands and soap and water. You want to make sure that you're using a non-scented antibacterial liquid soap. Don't use any kind of bars. Bar soaps can carry bacteria, so definitely stay away from those. And also, it's very important that you aren't using any fragrances in your soaps. Anything with perfume in it is going to have alcohol in it, and that's going to dry out your tattoo. I cannot stress it enough. Do not put anything scented on your tattoo. It's going to irritate the shit out of it. I always recommend washing your tattoo at least 3 times a day. Once in the morning, once midday, and once before you go to bed. It's very important to wash your tattoo. An infection is one of the worst things that could possibly happen to your tattoo. It's the main reason why we tell you guys about aftercare. Also, washing your tattoo regularly is going to keep the plasma off of your tattoo, which is what causes scabbing. If you've ever been tattooed before and you notice that your tattoo is leaking some kind of clear fluid, that's plasma. And if that dries on your tattoo, that creates scabbing. So, you gotta wash that off. Step 2. After you wash your tattoo, you want to let it dry for a couple of minutes. You can let it air dry, which I think is best, or you can blot it with a clean paper towel. Don't use any kind of rags or loofahs because, again, those could irritate your tattoo. They could carry bacteria. You don't want to get fuzzy things in your tattoo, that's also bad. But it's definitely important to let your tattoo dry because the next step is going to be applying some ointment. I always recommend A&D, but Aquaphor is just fine too. You can also purchase tattoo-specific ointments that are specifically designed for healing tattoos, which you can buy online or get at any tattoo convention. They even sell tattoo goo at Walmart now, so there's really no reason why you shouldn't be using the proper ointment. Don't use Vaseline, don't use petroleum jelly. It's also very important that you're using a very, very thin layer. I can't stress that enough either. The thinnest layer possible. If it's shiny, it's probably a little bit too much. Using too much ointment can clog the pores and doesn't allow for your tattoo to breathe, which is also important. One time I had a client who was using ointment but wasn't washing their tattoo with soap. And because she didn't use the soap, she broke out with a moisture rash. It's important that you're using soap, obviously because you don't want to get an infection, but also you need to be able to cut through that ointment. Your skin needs to breathe. It helps with the healing process. So there's a lot of different things that could happen if you don't follow those instructions very carefully. 1, you need to wash your tattoo with just your hands, soap and water. Make sure it's a non-scented liquid antibacterial soap, making sure you're letting your tattoo dry thoroughly. You don't want to trap any kind of moisture in there before you apply the ointment. Apply a very thin layer of ointment. And you'll repeat that 3 times a day for the first 3 days after you get your tattoo. After the 3rd day, you'll just switch to a non-scented lotion. Again, nothing with the fragrance. We talked about how the fragrances have alcohol in it, and that's just a no-no for tattoos. And then you want to make sure that you're using the lotion as many times a day as you can remember, probably for the next 2 weeks. Your tattoo is gonna flake, it's gonna peel, that's normal. Even some scabbing is normal, just make sure that you're not picking at the scabs. Also, if you do notice that there's any scabbing, you want to stop using any ointment on those areas. You want to stop using any lotion on those areas. I found, in my own personal opinion, that the ointment is really only good to prevent scabbing. Once you've gotten to the point where you have scabs, then the ointment doesn't do much good. The only thing that's going to do is make the scab soggy. So at that point, I suggest dry healing your tattoo, which we'll get to that in a minute. So the second method of taking care of your tattoo would be the wrapping method. Some tattooers will wrap your tattoo in saran wrap before you leave. It is standard procedure to wrap your tattoo before leaving the tattoo shop. That's important because the first couple of hours after you get your tattoo, your pores are still open and you're more susceptible to infection. So when you get home, you'll take off your bandage and you'll, again, wash your tattoo with just your hands, soap and water. You'll let it dry and then you'll rewrap it with a clean piece of saran wrap and you'll tape it. This method doesn't require any ointment because you're actually going to be using the plasma to heal the tattoo at this point. It's gonna get kind of gross in there. That's why you wanna change the dressing every couple of hours. I've suggested this method to nurses because they're more susceptible to bloodborne pathogens. Also, people who work in dirty environments like machine shops or factories, because again, you don't want to risk infection for your new tattoo. The third method of taking care of your tattoo is using something called Santaderm or a Tegaderm, which is basically a piece of clear plastic similar to saran wrap, but it has like an adhesive around it that clings to your skin. I've used Santaderm myself on my own body, and honestly, it was pretty great because I didn't have to worry about washing it as often, and really it was like out of sight, out of mind. It was pretty cool. The tattooer put a piece of Santaderm on my leg and told me that the next morning I could take it off, wash it, and to reapply a piece of Santaderm. And he did provide me with it, so that was pretty cool. So generally the tattooer will apply saran wrap or a piece of Tegaderm onto the new tattoo before you leave the shop. If it's saran wrap, they'll probably tell you to change it that night and then the next day apply a piece of Santaderm. So basically, you'll have your first piece of Santaderm on, you'll leave it on for 8 to 12 hours, you'll take it off, you'll wash it, it's gonna be really gross underneath there, and then you're gonna apply a new piece of Santaderm and you're gonna leave it on for like 5 to 7 days, basically until the tattoo is healed, or until it leaks, because that happens. A lot of people are weary of this method of taking care of the tattoo. I personally have seen somebody get an infection, but I would say that that was probably from the artist's error. But if done properly, it is an awesome way of taking care of your tattoo. I would suggest that every tattooer uses it on their own bodies, especially because we are susceptible to bloodborne pathogens. So keep your tattoos wrapped if you're a tattooer. Also, probably keep your tattoos wrapped if you work in a hospital or anything like that. For my own personal experiences, these are the methods that I am familiar with, so I'm only speaking on my own understanding, my own experience. I wouldn't tell you to use a method that I haven't used myself. So I would say that the most important thing out of all of these methods is keeping your tattoo clean, because as long as you avoid an infection, you're pretty much golden. But the last and final method of taking care of your tattoo, and I think every tattooer is probably guilty of this method, and that is the dry healing method. Basically, you don't do anything to your tattoo. You wash it, and then you forget about it. And it gets dry, and it gets flaky, and it gets crusty, and it's itchy. And yeah, I really wouldn't suggest this if you care about your tattoos, but I think a lot of tattooers just get tattooed and don't care because at this point, they probably have so many tattoos it doesn't even matter anymore. But I'm not a doctor, I'm just a professional tattooer. In my personal opinion, these are the best methods of taking care of your tattoo. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment. If you have another method that you prefer, definitely tell me about it in the comments and we can talk more about it later. I'm definitely always interested in hearing your guys' feedback. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it already. It's very important. I love you guys. You guys are so great. Thank you for supporting me through everything. You know what I'm saying? But until next time. Bye.